In 1 Timothy 6, verse 20 through 21, Paul writes to the young evangelist, and he says, O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings, and oppositions of science falsely so called, which some professing have erred concerning the faith. The opposition of science falsely so called is found in the King James, science falsely so called. When you're reading your American Standard, or really the definition of the word, it reads as knowledge falsely so called. Now, when you see the word science, you're thinking of the secular world and science that's going on. And then when you turn your attention to the other versions that use the word knowledge, then you think back of the first century with the Gnostics, the knowing ones, and you think maybe that's what Paul has in mind, that he is talking about those spiritual folks who believe they've got the right knowledge and others don't. So you have these two concepts. One is secular, science, and the other is religious, the knowing ones. They know more than anybody else. In reality, Paul has both in mind. Paul has in mind anything that is classified as knowledge that's falsely so called. It's falsely called knowing. And that fits both situations a number of times. The science falsely so called, therefore, is not restricted solely to spiritual things. It's not restricted, therefore, simply and solely to secular things, but it includes the scientific world, the scientific field, scientific discipline. I want you to listen to the various disciplines. There's 3 in number of major groups. There's the formal science, which has to do with mathematics and computers. You have natural science, which has to do with the cosmological, the geological, and the biological. And then you have social science, which has to do with human behavior, the social and cultural behavior or thought. I also want you to listen to the definition of the word science, because it'll take care of a lot of problems, a lot of issues. I'm not reading the full meaning, but you get the concept. The knowledge must be based on observable phenomenon and must be capable of being verified by other researchers working under the same conditions. This verifiability may well vary even within a scientific discipline. So you have to observe and you have to be able to verify. Let me say at the very beginning, nobody saw the Big Bang. Nobody saw anything concerning the Big Bang. We'll get to a little bit of that as that deals with science. Scientists are quick to charge the religionists as being wrong in their science. I'm going to say to you that indeed a number of religionists are wrong in their science. They're not scientists. They are religionists, unless they mix the two by their studies and their education. I go further to say that it's possible for the opinions of science and the opinions of the Bible to contradict. It's never possible for the facts of science and the facts of the Bible to contradict. As Brother Wallace would say, science we admire and we elevate. But when it comes to science, we're talking about to know, not guess, not have a wild opinion, and not simply to rely upon theories, but instead to recognize knowledge, observable, repeatable situations. We do this, though, we turn to the Bible and recognize that the Bible has pre-science in it. The Bible has declared scientific principles decades, centuries, thousands of years before men have started practicing and declaring the same science. Now, right here, we could spend the rest of our time, and we heard a young man by the name of Andrew on a Wednesday night spend about 35 minutes talking about the Bible's pre-science. We're not going to take that much time. I am going to turn, however, first of all, to Acts chapter 17, verse 26, and compare it to a New York Post headline. The headline reads this way: turns out all of humanity is related to a single couple. Not only did the New York Post proclaim that, but over in the United Kingdom, they said that article is accurate. That article is correct. That all human beings came from a single couple. Folks, scientists have disagreed with that concept, but now you have it declared by major newspapers. Listen to Acts chapter 17, verse 26. Though the Apostle Paul is not dealing with science, he's dealing with facts of life. In the midst of talking to the pagans and the Gentiles at Athens, he says this: God made of one every nation of men to dwell upon the face of the earth. God made of one. So you didn't have our ancestors coming from the Europeans, from apes of Europe, and our ancestors coming from the ancestors in Africa, the apes of Africa, and they somewhere along the line met every once in a while. Who teaches that? Scientists did. They no longer. Also, when it comes time to, let me do this as well. The Apostle Paul is not addressing science. That's not what he's doing. What he's doing, he's addressing the Greek and the Jews. The Greek thought that they were a special breed. The Jews thought that they were a special breed. Neither one of them were bred special. Neither one of them. So when he says, God made of one all nations of the earth to dwell, he just told the Greeks they are no better than a Jew. He just told the Jews they're no better than the Greeks. He just told the white man he's no better than the black. He just told the black man he's no better than the white. Our ancestry doesn't determine who's the best. We all came from the same Adam and Eve. A second time that you have pre-science within the scriptures would be the counting of stars. Looking at Acts chapter 15, verse 5, the Bible reads, and he brought Abraham forth abroad, and he said, look now toward the heaven, number the stars, if thou be able to number them, and say unto them, so shall thy seed be. What God just told Abraham is this, and this was 2,500 years before the first century. This was 4,500 years ago that he said this to Abraham. If you're able to count the stars, you can count your seed. You can count how many offspring you're going to have. And the point is, you can't count them because your offspring is innumerable. It's the number of the sand of the sea. Notice with me in Jeremiah 33:22. As the host of heaven cannot be numbered, said Jeremiah, neither the sand of the sea measured, so I will multiply thy seed, David. David came from Abraham. So if he's going to multiply the seed of David, he's multiplied the seed of Abraham, and it's greater than the stars of the sky. It's greater than the sand of the sea. That's a lot. In the first century, scientists of that day counted the stars. Guess how many stars? 3,000. Remember, they didn't have telescopes. They didn't have all the advantages we have today of gaining knowledge. So how is it that God would say to Abraham that the stars are as innumerable, unnumberable as the sand? Because God created them, and God even names them, said the psalmist. Try to number the stars. I'm going to ask Sue to start tonight to number the stars. It's going to take her millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of years for her to count them. 10 to the 25th power is a lot of stars. That's how many they think there are there, and they haven't counted them all yet. They have supercomputers that can do 10,000 calculations in 1 second. 10,000 calculations in 1 second. They're going to put that computer to work. That means they can count faster than Sue. It will take that computer 30 million years to count the stars. How did God know? How did Moses know that there were so many stars in the sky? Since you can only count 3,000 in the first century. Scientists are quick to declare that religionists are wrong in their science, and at times they are. However, scientists are also wrong in their science. I'm going back to the 15th and 16th century when there's a discussion between the religious scientists of that day and scientists, secular scientists, religious, secular. Copernicus and Galileo. Galileo had a big argument with the Roman Catholic Church concerning the sun and the earth. Here was the argument from the scientists, religious, secular, in the 15th, 16th century. And remember, Copernicus was the one that gave the model. The religionists said the earth is stationary and is the center, and all of the heavenly bodies, the moon, the planets, the stars, the sun, rotate in a perfect circle around the earth. And each one of the heavenly bodies is a perfect sphere. The scientists said, no, you got it wrong, said Galileo. The sun is stationary, and the sun is the center, with all of the planets rotating in a circle, perfect circle around the sun, all of the various planets and heavenly bodies being perfect circles. Three things were wrong. The secular scientists and the religious scientists got three things wrong. Number one, the earth is not stationary. But Galileo, the sun is not stationary either. It's moving in space. Now, as far as the primary thought that all of the planets and bodies are rotating around the sun, that's true, but not in a perfect circle. It's oblong. Their rotation is like an egg, like an oval, not a circle. So that's two things they got wrong. The other thing is the earth, the sun, and all the other bodies are not perfect spheres. So both sides got three things incorrect. What's the point? The point is religionists can be wrong. The point is scientists can be wrong. We go a little bit further and we're reading the Encyclopedia Britannica. This may surprise you. Here's a headline, here's a title, and it says, "What Darwin Got Right and Wrong About Evolution." Stop and think. Darwin is in our 8th grade textbooks that we teach our 8th graders. And yet our Britannica, our encyclopedia, and other things will tell you that Darwin got it wrong. They didn't think Darwin got it wrong when they put it in the textbook, but now they found out more DNA, and they recognized that Darwin got it wrong. As a matter of fact, Darwinist Richard Dawkins once said, Darwin would scarcely recognize his own theory in what's going on in Darwinism. Darwin got it wrong, but oh, how he's upheld as a giant, as a god. He's smarter than anybody else. I'm not making fun of Darwin. I'm making fun of people who science falsely so-called. Just the fact that such an article as What Darwin Got Wrong is written demonstrates the flaws in science books. Men get it wrong. Turning our attention again to the middle school science book, they got it wrong when it comes to examples of human evolution. There is no middle transition model. I cannot emphasize to you how important that is. I remember in 1970, and I've called your attention to it more than once, that in 1970, Thomas Warren debated Anthony Flew, F-L-E-W. Flew was an atheist, didn't believe in God. They debated the existence of God. In that debate, Warren put up for Flew to answer as an argument to show that men did not evolve. He put up before Mr. Flew to answer, when did a non-human give birth to a human? And if you can't find that, and by the way, he couldn't, nobody in his realm could, they can't find it today. There is no transitional model example of a non-human giving birth to a human. You have to have that, or you have to have a non-human transforming into a human. Where's that model? Where in what skeleton do we see that going on? Well, Ron, if you'll go to the Smithsonian Museum, you will see on the wall that we started out as a little bitty lizard type thing, a walking fish, out of the sea. And then we kind of transformed and we became a bird or a lizard and then a bird. And then we became an ape or a monkey. And then we became man. Voila, there it is. It's proof. It's at the Smithsonian Museum. You can see the chart anywhere. You can look and you can say chart, evolution, and you will see what I just described to you. However, there is no such transition. It's all in the imagination of scientists. Opinion, not fact, opinion. All human beings came from the first parents. All dogs came from a canine. All feline came from the first cats. That's what the Bible would teach, and the Bible would be correct. What we have in evolution in our science books is this: to show and to prove the fact of human evolution. We have the Nebraska man. We have the Neanderthal. Some pronounce it Neanderthal, whichever way you want to pronounce it. We have the Java man. We have the Piltdown man. Now, we could discuss every one of those if you want to take 45 minutes discussing, but let me call your attention to one that was in the science books, in the 8th grade science books. It was in their books for 40 years. It's called the Piltdown man. Since 1953. And it was in the textbooks, and they knew it. Since before 1953, they knew it was a fraud. They knew it was a fraud, yet they put it in the textbooks. They left it in the textbooks. They talked about it in the museums. Their theories fall apart. There is no intermediate. We now turn our attention to another scientific field, discipline, and that would be in the psychoanalysis. The man's name is Sigmund Freud, the father of the psychoanalysis. Here's a quote from those in that field. Listen closely. Although many of Sigmund Freud's theories have since fallen out of favor, what? You don't need to read anymore. That is stated by a Freud follower. And the Freud follower and disciple says many of his theories have fallen out of favor. Science get it wrong sometimes. The Britannica has a headline that goes like this: what Sigmund Freud got wrong about psychology and your mother. Having read a few things concerning Sigmund Freud and his basic understanding and his basic studies concerning psychology, You could say, what Sigmund Freud got wrong about psychology and your mother and your father. Oh, I didn't mean to point to Sue when I said that. I just meant the mother and the father. Because that's his theory. But they have since shown that Sigmund Freud did not know what he's talking about. The headline alone of such an article declares the flaws in the books of men. Well, just as you have changes in the textbooks, and just as you have changes in the declarations and revisions in the declarations from the scientists, so you have changes and you have revisions in the various creeds and confessions of faith and disciplines. I want to call your attention to an article. And by the way, you can find these. It's easy to find. What I'm about to tell you is not news. I'm simply telling you something that's already known. Headline from their website: why have Jehovah's Witnesses changed some of their beliefs? We have always used the Bible as the sole authority of our beliefs, so we have adjusted our beliefs as our understanding has changed. Do what? We no longer believe what we once believed because we no longer think the Bible says what the Bible says. That's what the writer just pointed out. And so the Jehovah's Witnesses have changed their belief. Now I want to call your attention to the Methodist discipline. In the preface, therefore, we, the Bible Methodist Discipline Revision Committee, have endeavored to work with all due diligence to revise our discipline. Why are you revising what you believe? Because they no longer believe what they believed. I'm now reading a page off of a Baptist site. In 1998, again in the year 2000, major revisions have been made in the Southern Baptist Convention's Confession of Faith. Folks, the Confession of Faith, the discipline, all of these things are major books written by the various denominations to tell you what they believe. They have changed their belief. Why? Ron, you shouldn't make fun of people like that. I'm not. I'm simply pointing out to you what they are publicly stating, that their beliefs have changed. Has the Bible changed? Who moved? Who moved? I'm now reading a page from, and you can repeat these a variety of times, from the Life Church. Quote, we are an interdenominational church. Do you know the basic principle behind an interdenominational? Interdenominational says you can believe whatever you want. Come and be a part of us. So I believe one thing, you believe another. You believe a third. You believe a fourth. We have 1,000 members and all 1,000 can believe something different concerning the Bible, and that's okay because we are interdenominational. We are divided is what denominational means. We in our own body are divided in our beliefs. Well, you guys are too, and they're churches of Christ. Wait a minute. Let's be sure we understand something. These people are telling you that's what they want. When a division in a basic necessary belief arises in the churches of Christ, somebody's wrong and needs to go back to what the Bible says. And I would say that concerning each and every one of these, men have revised what they think the Bible says, but the book has not. The book still says the same thing that it said at the very beginning. And I need to talk about the beginning just for 2 sentences. Sentence number 1 is this. The Bible was not finished with the first word or first sentence or first paragraph. An author may spend a year or 5 years or 10 years writing a book. It's not finished until he's written the last word. God took 1,500 years, 40 different writers in various places, various occupations. He took 40 writers, 1,500 years to finish his book. When he finished his book in the first century, it has not changed. The disciplines have changed. The manuals have changed. The creeds have changed. Men's beliefs have changed, but the Bible has not. I cannot emphasize to you how important it is to recognize and to understand that distinction. Let me conclude with this. Interpretation of what God wrote will continue to be debated by good and evil men. It will continue to be debated by knowledgeable and ignorant men. It will continue to be debated by honest and dishonest men. However, the truth that is written will never change. What is the truth yesterday? That's the truth we have to hold on today. And the truth of yesterday, when the writers of the New Testament finished it, that's the truth we have to hold on tomorrow. When the writers of the New Testament finished writing the book, when Jude was the writer said, contend earnestly for the once for all delivered faith. When that was written, those words, there were no additional doctrines presented to mankind. Every New Testament writer believed in the virgin birth of Jesus Christ. Every New Testament writer believed that God created the heavens and the earth and he made man in his image. Every Bible writer believed and taught the same thing, that Jesus Christ came to this earth as incarnate, God in flesh, born of a virgin, who lived on this earth, who was crucified on the cross of Calvary for the sins of mankind, who arose from the dead on the third day, just like he predicted, just like the scriptures had predicted hundreds of years earlier, that he arose from the grave, that he sent his apostles into all the world to preach the gospel to every creature. He that believeth and is baptized shall be saved. That truth doesn't change. That's what they believed. That's what we need to believe. That's what we ought to believe. We need to believe in the church when Jesus said, I will build my church. We need to believe in that church, the one that he built. And in Acts chapter 2, the Lord added to the church daily such as should be saved. That is the church that we need to be a part of. It's that kingdom, that church that will avail. The others will not. They are by men. They are the opinions of men, and we need to avoid such.